Joining us right now on the Comcast Business Hotline is nationally recognized sports psychologist Joel Fish on the Comcast Business Hotline. How are you today, Joel? Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Great to be with you.
To start off, there's no bigger game in American sports, obviously, than the Super Bowl. This is what all these guys dreamed of playing in their entire lives. Could you even begin to talk about the pressure that goes through top athletes that you've dealt with minds when there's a game of this magnitude?
Well, having dealt with pro athletes from all the different sports, the ones that rise to the pro level are more likely to be able to say, wow, bring it on. You don't get to the pro level at this level and work your way to the Super Bowl unless you have a special talent and a special personality. And part of that special personality is learning how to embrace that pressure and say, wow, bring it on. And so I think that's what you see with the teams that make it this far.
Yeah, when you're dealing with certain individuals, if something's going wrong with them and they have a big game that's upcoming, what kind of advice do you give them in that sense that, hey, forgive, forget, and move on type thing?
Well, first off, I think you have to be honest about what your emotions are. But if a player at this level getting ready for the Super Bowl doesn't say they have some nervousness, then I don't believe them. I think step one is let's be honest. What are you feeling? So step two, we can come up with a plan. And that plan most often is the bigger the game, the narrower the focus. The bigger the game, the narrower the focus. What can you say? What can you do to be the calm in the midst of the storm? Control what you can, let go what you can't. So we teach positive self-talk. We really teach breathing exercises. We teach focusing exercises. But if you go into the game, even of this magnitude, saying, I'm in this situation, I know what to do, I have a plan, not just the X's and O's, but emotionally, you can be 2-yard line, game on the line, and be able to say, I'm in this situation, I know what to do, and approach that situation with confidence.
So I want to ask you about this story that people talk about with the 49ers, how it's a big game, it's a TV timeout, so it's extended timeout in the Super Bowl, and Joe Montana's in the huddle pointing out celebrities in the crowd. In your experience, and some of the players are admitted they're nervous, it's high tension. He's like, hey, look, I think he said it was there's John Candy, and he's pointing out people and he's completely relaxed. In your experience, what separates a person who maybe 6 guys in that huddle that are super nervous, and Joe Montana who's in that huddle and it's just so detached that he's like in the middle of a timeout, he's pointing out celebrities?
Well, you can't paint every player with the same brush. Sometimes you got to bear down, try harder. 9 out of 10 times, even at the pro level, in my experience, in those key moments, you got to lighten up. Slow down. Slow that heartbeat down, blood pressure slow down, so that your natural talent can flow. And part of the art of being the quarterback, what Joe Montana was great at, was sort of reading the group, and he knew when to say, hey, we got to bear down here, but he also knew when to lighten up. And if you're able to figure that out as a quarterback and as a leader, I think you motivate your guys mentally to be in the best possible shape when the game's on the line. I got to be honest with you, I've been listening to your show, great show, and you've been talking about who's better, but I haven't heard you guys talk a lot about the mental part of the game, who might be better. And as I analyze this game, I just think the one fact that stands out to me is that streak that the Chiefs have in winning those one-score games, because more often than not, go back to the last time we played them, it's going to come back to that last 6 minutes. And hunger is a factor, drive's a factor, but belief, we've got them where we want them, is a factor. And to me, how the Chiefs and Eagles handle that mentally the last 6 minutes is going to be the key to the outcome of the game.
And the Eagles have a quarterback who doesn't give you much when you hear his interviews in Jalen Hurts. When you look at Jalen Hurts and listen to Jalen Hurts, what thoughts do you think about? Because he seems just extremely confident all the time.
Well, this is a fan of me as well as a sports psychologist. I love Jalen Hurts because he's like a lot of guys. Outwardly they look cool and calm, but inside, they've got a fire and they've got a competitiveness. A.J. Brown, he shows his emotions. Everybody knows what he's thinking. But I have a lot of confidence in Hurts being able to play well on the big stage. I mean, one of his best games was in the Super Bowl, 2 years ago. So inside, what I'm thinking is when he's on that bench, bring it on. And he embraces, those kinds of opportunities to make winning plays. So I have a lot of confidence in him as a leader. If it's a drive to win the game, that he's going to perform well.
We're speaking with sports psychologist, nationally recognized sports psychologist Joel Fish. I want to ask you about that one-score thing. There are people in sports that do the analytics, and they'll say over the long haul, that number balances out. If you're 8-0, there's going to be some streak where you lose 5, 6 in a row, and that number eventually balances out. But the way you're kind of putting it, there's a certain mental skill to winning those games. Am I changing? Is that what you were trying to say?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Ricky, when you played 162 baseball games, you're going to go through some ups and downs and slumps. But it's not an accident, in my opinion, that the Chiefs have some phenomenal record in these one-score games, because I do believe, you look at Mahomes, this is just looking at him from the outside, in that team, but how they're able to execute and show poise in those last drives. The championship mindset is, we're going to find a way. We're going to figure this out. And I think that's a real mental skill, individually and collectively. And my concern about who's better, if you will, is that track record of Kansas City, because they have found a way. They figure it out. And if you believe that, that really influences your ability to execute and perform in pressure situations. I have to give the advantage to the Chiefs in that area.
Yeah, it makes sense. I got to tell you, sometimes it's simple, sometimes it's not. But I could tell by being around you when I was in the minor leagues. I'll never forget AAA, struggling my butt off. And I was supposed to be this next coming of the closer of the year, and I couldn't get anybody out. You know what Dr. Fish told me? What's a 300 hitter? I said, that's a really good hitter in baseball. He goes, yeah, he makes it out 7 out of 10 times. Think about that when you're pitching on the mound. You already got a 70% advantage before you even throw the ball. Am I right?
I remember that like it was yesterday.
Yep.
And player development, and this is what that reminds me of. It could be baseball and all these sports. It's taking competitive guys like you, and you were as competitive as it came, Ricky Bo, and channeling that energy a higher percentage of time in a positive way, but learning some checks and balances so that intensity doesn't come out in a negative way, overthinking, having trouble letting go of a mistake. Hopefully the Eagles have, through the course of the season, improved in that area, because I think mentally, which is how I'm looking at this game, it's going to boil down to that. Those last 6 minutes, and do you have the mindset and the plan to execute emotionally? Do you have the poise? The fire's there, the hunger's there. I believe the advantage to that is to the Eagles. I think that drives you a little more than sort of a three-peat motivation. But I just hope that over the course of the year, and I assume that has, they've been talking about these emotional situations and a plan to handle the big stage, because it's going to come down to that from my point of view.
Well, Joel, we really appreciate you coming on and giving us insight into the minds of these top guys and sharing your expertise. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me, and enjoy the game.
Thanks so much. That was sports psychologist Joel Fish giving the idea. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Really appreciate it. If you want more of this content, make sure you like and subscribe. And you can do that kind of over here if you want more of the best show ever.